No one knows I'm not wearing any pants. 5 years ago, I did something I had never done before. I bought an expensive piece of hardware just for one game. Sure, I've bought many different kinds of PC hardware to increase my overall performance, but, well, as the word overall implies, it's always been about making my gaming in general be a more fun, fluid, and flawless activity. But with my purchase of a used Oculus Rift S out of the trunk of some guy at a medium-sized German city's train station parking lot, I spent a few $100 for one single purpose only: to finally play a new Half-Life. For your average Half-Life enjoyer, I might be a bit of an odd specimen. I will defend Half-Life 2 and its episodes, as well as Portal 1 and 2 as parts of Half-Life's extended universe to the end of my life. All three of those games are one of the most important milestones of gaming history and have basically single-handedly made me care for and enjoy single-player narratives. And yet, I have never played Half-Life 1. I was 4 when it released, and when I was old enough to even remotely understand these stories and had finally gotten a laptop to play some games on, the game was 9 years old already. I stumbled over Half-Life 2 first, as part of the Orange Box, which I bought because I saw a trailer for Portal on YouTube at a friend's house. I will get into my experience with Half-Life 2 in a minute, but as you can imagine, if you've been exposed to Half-Life 2 in all its glory, switching back to 1 is rough. Especially for an early teen who just wants nice graphics and the latest technological edge possible on a laptop. I tried getting into Black Mesa a while back, and maybe I will try again in the future, but for now, the project is on ice for me. To understand the significance of Half-Life Alyx for me, we need to take a quick look at how I remember and experienced Half-Life 2 back then. When it comes to games with a proper story, my only real exposure to them had been the GTA series, out of which I had properly played Vice City and San Andreas by that point in time. I started Half-Life 2 for fun, basically out of a, well, it's included so I should give it a try sentiment. And just the second I started it, spawning in that train after this mysterious guy gave some kind of weird speech, the game design and world building completely floored me. I hadn't had my apocalyptic dystopian favoritism awakening yet, that would be Metro 2033 in 2012, but this was my first proper introduction to it. Anyways, the game just went on impressing me. The first look at Alyx, the lively dialogue and animations, the varied gameplay, wide-ranged and so creative levels, and a story full of mystery and intrigue. God, it was so good! I played the 2 episodes, same thing, I played Portal 1 and Portal 2, same thing, and then I waited for years. As all of you did. Dug into rabbit holes, clung onto every fan theory regarding the connections between Portal and Half-Life, joined the Half-Life 3 bandwagon and memes, and slowly but surely, Half-Life started moving to the back of my mind. And on the 21st of November 2019, Valve did an insane thing. They released the announcement trailer for Half-Life Alyx. And I can't even find the words for what I felt. It was a ridiculous feeling to be had for a piece of media, but I knew I had to play it no matter the cost. And yes, obviously, the controversy of it being fully VR did not escape my view, but let's get into this later. And with this, we're at the start again, in my girlfriend's flat mere hours after that dubious visit to the train station. She had no more than 15 square meters, that's 161 square feet, of student flat to her name, and yet that was where we were spending our weekend that week, so this was where I would play Alyx. I think it was 2Clicks Philip who said something along the lines of, using VR is like going on a roller coaster. No matter how low quality it is still a roller coaster. And I can fully sign off on that statement, whether it's about hardware or the space you're playing in. I mean, an Oculus Rift S was not top tier back then, but definitely not bottom either, so I'm not complaining. But the space I was playing in was a bit, challenging. Basically, I had an L-shaped space available with a narrower part in the middle, but I was determined on making it work. I set up the Guardian, did the tutorial thing, which already blew my goddamn mind, and then I jumped into Half-Life Alyx as the first VR experience I have ever had in my life. Standing atop City 17, with the citadel stretching out into the sky in front of me was, and frankly is, an insane feeling. Of course, I'm heavily preloaded with Half-Life 2 nostalgia and the importance of that building, but even to someone who is completely new to this series, for example all the friends I have shown it to over the years, this scene is breathtaking. Alright, is this game still as good as it was back then? Short answer, yes. The long answer is a simple question. Is Half-Life Alyx VR only for the sake of being VR? Let's look at the game, literally. I've noticed an interesting concept when playing in VR, not necessarily only for this game. In VR, in 3D, games look better than their 2D counterparts that are being streamed to your screen, that you are seeing right now. Half-Life Alyx looks good, even in 2D, but there's something about the virtual physicality of the levels and everything in it that gives it an indescribable look that is just better. Usually if I describe the graphical quality of a game, I would say, well, the textures are high res and the shadows are low res, the reflections are bad and the models are good. But all these typical categories of graphical fidelity don't really differ between VR and the screen, and yet it looks so much better. I mean, duh, you might say, you are literally surrounded by the world instead of looking at it, but there's something more to it, intangible, which those of you who have played in VR probably know what I'm talking about. Very much tangible, though, is Half-Life Alyx's other visual feat, the immaculate art style. Valve has always had a hand for crafting worlds, soundtracks, UIs, models, and more that go as intensely hand in hand with each other as possible. Given the fact that the game takes place between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, it makes sense that many of the models and designs of especially the latter have found their way into Alyx and have given it the clean and technical but melancholically dystopian style of Half-Life 2 that we all love. Paired with the late Viktor Antonov's dark metallic style is an increased amount of organic world building in a very literal sense. Half-Life, especially Half-Life 2, has always had this weird mix of organic and inorganic materials. The dropships or striders, for example, are organic. They are beings, I guess, but they are also machines, a perverse robotic rebirth of previously maybe alive things? Ted Beckman, a previous art director, conceptual artist, illustrator, and animator at Valve, said that the synths, which is the collective name for all these beings, were being scanned by the Combine in their natural habitat, and that scan would become the basis of the Strider's design before recreating it synthetically. But all of this is existent in Half-Life 2 already, so what's so special about it? In general, not much. But in Half-Life Alyx, we go closer. Starting with 40 Giorni, the quarantine zone, biomass is one of the most prominent aspects of level design. There is a weird, thick film of organic material stretching over many levels, oozing, moving, growing, sometimes watching, and I feel that this was a very deliberate decision on Valve's end. They knew we would be inside of the levels, not in front of a screen with more or less normal human world space between us and the biological horrors of the Combine apocalypse. So they placed these things there for us to touch, to sheepishly get closer to breathe in and to wonder about. It is a perfect representation of the virus of the Combine flowing over City 17 and Earth, and is a strong indicator of the fact that Valve really thought about how they would bring this game to VR. It might sound simple, but the mere fact that you have to open the goddamn doors yourself is so good. It's what sets this game apart from Fallout 4 VR, Skyrim VR, or whatever. You need to get your hands on with it, push down the door handle, not a button, carefully swing the door open, pointing your gun into the next room, wondering if this is where the zombie cries are coming from, terribly or ingeniously familiar, inducing memories of places like Ravenholm. Reloading and shooting said weapons is so satisfying, so detailed, but also your own responsibility. Keep an eye on your ammo, eject the magazine properly, get a new one from your backpack, don't forget to prime your pistol, switch weapons, aim, shoot, don't miss. Reload again, drop the magazine, stumble, get hit, take a new magazine out of the backpack, finally get the gun going and unload most of the whole magazine into the wall, and luckily just enough into the head crab on this poor person's head. Or why don't you work these terminals, inject these thick discs, but please don't look inside of what you are holding right now, because you can't and don't want to have to comprehend what this is, how this works. Stick your hand into this machine, watch it kill this bug and feel weirdly, disgustingly good afterwards. That is how VR is done. Another aspect of VR-focused world building is the scale of time. The game takes place over the course of just one day. As we are basically inside of the game, it makes sense for us to move through it at a pace that is more akin to what we are used to in the outside world. Not only is this quite immersive, it is also useful for structural purposes. For many, as it was for me, this game was the first proper VR experience. So leading with dark, horror-infested levels would have either made people exit the game in droves or make Valve the main reason for heart attacks in 2020. But it starts out bright, in daylight, and it only gets darker over time. But wait, you say, isn't it a bit imbalanced then, that the first part is boringly bright and the second half gets very dark? Good question, but that is not the case. Rather, we arrive in dark, headcrab-infested tunnels in Chapter 3 already. But after we fight through those, we are allowed to take a breather at the surface again, enjoy the light and openness, and gather our strength to go back in again. The pacing is immaculate in this game and very fitting to be used in VR. It exhausted me exactly the right amount before throwing me a pause or two in which I was actually able to reflect whether I wanted to keep on playing or call it a day with a clear head. Sure, near the end the game does get quite intense with less pauses and less light and more creatures and a fucked up form of reality, but if you haven't gotten used to and built a tolerance to these kind of things by then, you can just close the game and come back another time. A while ago I played Into the Radius, the first one. It's a bit like Stalker maybe, but in VR, and I had to refund it. It was reasonably scary at times by surprising you and pressuring you, but overall it was not as polished. If you had asked me before I played Half-Life Alyx and Into the Radius whether I wanted an open-world VR game or a closed-off level structure VR game, I would have said, please give me an open-world VR GTA. But actually, no. Having these levels be this tight and small, Valve were able to not only fill them with plenty of detail, which is incredibly important in VR, but also deliver a highly polished gaming experience that plays out exactly like they imagined it for you. And atmosphere is everything in VR. And a well-done atmosphere takes incredible amounts of work and planning, which are so much more feasible when you lock the player down just a bit. You still walk around for at least 12 hours and there are plenty of quite open spaces and you can go back and explore the areas and houses you're in, so it is, to me at least, absolutely no problem that there is no open world. However, this would not have been possible in a normal game. The story this game tells, the physical space this story occupies, is not large enough to facilitate a normal controller or keyboard and mouse controlled game. For VR though, it's perfect. I want to talk some more about how this game feels when you're part of the world in this way that only VR accomplishes. As I said, atmosphere is everything in VR. And luckily Half-Life has been one of the prime examples of atmosphere, basically since its first conception in 1998. See, Zeba, you might say, just putting your players into dark tunnels and next to a creepy biomass isn't really a creatively created strong atmosphere, it's cheap, right? Isn't it? And actually, I would generally agree. Seeing the calming RGB of your PC next to you sitting in a normal room, not having your whole field of view be the horrors the game throws you into, is quite relaxing and immersion breaking. So putting you into a sensory deprivation chamber of sorts and taking away all the comfort of your known surroundings is quite an efficient way of making you atmospherically immersed. But Valve does more, as they always do. When encountering new challenges in Valve games, they usually make you live through a toned-down version of the situation first. Your first zombies are dead, the first alive one's behind a fence. The first armored headcrab is behind a fence as well, the first combine you encounter as enemies and not as civil protection units are dead and hanging from the ceiling. And the first time you encounter absolute darkness, you walk by it. Alyx even gives a quick comment to her radio companion Russell about how dark it is in there, but, well, you gotta go on, so you do. Only to walk into this absolute mess of a situation. Your goal is down there, in the darkness, a sewage room or storm drain filled with biomass. A zombie hanging from the ceiling with a flashlight on its chest. The first time I got to this part, and to be honest, this playthrough as well, I was so incredibly hesitant to go down there. Of course, for one, because it was dark and there would be headcrabs and I would be out in the open and so on, but also because it dawned on me what this flashlight meant. It meant there would be more darkness. It meant that I would have to restrict and adjust my movement to account for the small cone of light the flashlight emits to light the way properly, all while being surrounded by alien life, dead set on ending me. And I remembered Alyx's quip to Russell about that dark tunnel. And all this elevates Half-Life Alyx's atmosphere way above darkness is scary. But you know what's also scary? Brightness. Seeing your demise. Half-Life 2 starts out in broad daylight on a train, but you quickly realize that you are in a dystopian hellscape rather than an Eastern European holiday resort. But all of this, due to the aforementioned art style of Half-Life, and while still impressive in Alyx as well, is nothing new. What is, though, is its scale. Relative to you, of course, but in Alyx, in VR, and this might sound obvious, but everything is the size that it would be in reality. And if you haven't had the pleasure of playing VR yet, I cannot describe to you or make you understand how absolutely insane it is to have a combined soldier, not to mention elites or chargers, in your face at full height. These fuckers are estimated to be 7 feet in size, that's 2 meters 13. If I blow up this guy on this picture to full height on my PC screen, he's roughly 34 centimeters tall. That's about 13 inches. Ooh, scary, right? Just imagine how stressed one can get while playing games on a screen. Maybe when you're overrun by enemies that are a maximum of 13 inches tall. Now let me do the math real quick here. So, yes. So, this is me. And we insert our little screen combine into this picture relative to Alyx's size in this picture. He would be this big. Cute, right? Imagine them doing some funny little high-pitched comps. This is him in VR. No need for further explanation. And don't even get me started on the manhacks, the drones, the striders. Seeing all of it in full scale in broad daylight is a sight to behold, a trauma to be had. It is something no normal gaming experience could ever transport. There is no way. I know what's coming. I have played this game before, and yet there's absolutely no way in hell I am not repeatedly hesitant to step through this door, over this barrier, into this situation, because I know damn well what's about to happen. And that is why I'm going to say it. I am glad that this game is in VR. Yes, I know. I absolutely know that there are many people who do not have VR headsets, can't afford even the most affordable ones, have disabilities that hinder them. Alyx has some nice accessibility features though. Not enough space or any other reason to not play this game. And I understand that. But what those complaining also need to understand is that this hurdle exists for gaming in general. I'm not trying to lay the whataboutism on too thick, but there are people who can't game at all, can't afford the cheapest of PCs or consoles, don't have the time, room, or physical ability to game at all. And yet, you are not calling for the abolishment of gaming in general, because just as you can't play VR, they can't play at all, right? Okay, you might say, but they could have just made the game in 2D, right? They could have, but, and that's my worst argument, they didn't want to. So they didn't. Suck it up. I would have loved to see VR support in Forza Horizon 5, but they didn't do it. So I suck it up. I think, and this is more conspiracy than anything, that Valve was a bit scared of Half-Life 3. The expectations are absolutely monumental, and if they fuck it up, they botched the single most awaited game release maybe ever. So they maybe test the water, smaller in scope, almost no new writing beyond the endpoint of episode 2. They use a setting we know, they use a character we know, they use music we know, and they set it all up for a bit over a dozen nice hours. But how do you sell this testing of the waters, of the Half-Life crowd's reaction without either needing to go too big or disappointing them with a too small scope? You make it VR. Standalone, new, fresh, even though the concepts are old, safe, reserved for a specific, highly interested kind of audience, and, as if all of that wasn't useful enough already, you can also sell your $1,000 VR kit while you're at it. And while doing so, you deliver the best VR experience many players, including me, have ever seen. No game has ever come close to it. So many were ruined from the start by what it accomplished. And no, Half-Life Alyx wasn't made for VR for the sake of making VR possible. VR is what made Half-Life Alyx possible. Thanks for watching.